And, you know, there's a bit of a history here. When we started NOAH, every year we were criticized. Harpo, it's great, but there are so many men on the stage. And actually, we always said, you're right, we agree. Who shall we invite? So from year to year, we got to know a fantastic group of entrepreneurs. And at this stage, I would like to ask one question. What are you doing currently? What are you focused on? Please.
Me? Okay. My name is Annelies van den Belt. I run a digital media business in Russia. So I sort of had to look twice when I was asked to be part of this panel, because do I run a startup, do I not run a startup? I run a group of companies, all based on professional media content mixed with user-generated and sort of then mixed with tools and services. We are nearly number 3 in the market. We do news, sport, travel, cars, etc., etc.
How many users you reach in Russia?
55 million a month.
So you reach 55 million users in Russia, which is one of the largest Russian internet companies.
So I'm Joanna. I run a startup in San Francisco that's a venture-backed startup in the recruiting space. So we built an enterprise software as a solution. Our clients right now, we're implementing our platform into like Pepsi, Disney, Williams-Sonoma, Avon, Peet's Coffee. We're working with actually about 20 Fortune 500 companies, and really what we're doing is we're changing the way communication works in jobs. Instead of it being job descriptions and resumes, we actually converted that into challenges that are based on real in-department problems that company is facing. And then candidates actually respond back with a one-page job proposal saying exactly how they're positioning the company to beat the competition, why they are uniquely qualified to stimulate this department, and why some unique innovation or idea that they have to add to the corporation. Really, at this point, it's just focusing on how are we going to stimulate innovation inside of companies and source innovation both internally and externally. So that's what we do.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ella Weston. I work for the communications group, WPP. So I feel a little bit of a fraud sitting here because I'm neither a leading woman like these ladies or do I work in tech. But what I do is I run an unconference called Stream. And Stream brings together the audience that is here with us today, along with the global brands that we work with on a day-to-day basis, together with the broader tech industry, whether that be our partners, Facebook, LinkedIn, through to startups and yourselves, the VCs. And the point of that is that the marketing innovation that you guys are working so hard on is what our clients are working on. And we don't see enough forums to bring those two people together. And we do that twice a year now, once here in Europe and once in Asia. And I'm really excited because I see a lot of great people, both women and men, in the space, and we need to make better connections to the big corporates.
Alex, please.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Chong, the founder and CEO of Luluvise. Essentially, it's a social platform just for women, and it's a place to recreate girl time, so think Sex in the City marries Facebook, and you get an idea of what we do. We launched about 10 months ago our first product, which is a web product. And I guess what we've been focused on over the last 6 months is actually moving away from the desktop environment and going solely mobile. So in a couple weeks, we are actually launching 3 new products: Android, iOS, and mobile web experience. And we've got a few exciting announcements to make in the next couple months about a big fundraise and just where we're going as a company.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Orit. I do a few things. I'll make it short. I'm part of a few startup companies that I help build, either as a board member, advisory board chairman, whatever. I'm part of 3 new startup companies, and I'm part of the founding team about to be launched this month. And I'm a general partner in a private equity fund. And I lecture in university about venture capital.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I am Marina, the CEO and co-founder of Fastlane Ventures. We have a big mission of building the Russian online future, but for the 2.5 years of working in Russia, we built, as we believe, one of the fastest accelerators in the Russian consumer internet space. So we have today 20 businesses that we've launched. We've invested close to $80 million in the businesses. It's close to 700 people that work in our companies. And today, I think we can launch the company in almost less than 50 days. We bring together, we believe, the entrepreneurs' execution, which is tough in Russia, and the money together, and hope that this will result in very good things in the future.
Thank you very much. Fantastic energy. So let's start with a technical question. Who of you is able to write code?
A little bit. I did a 2-day course, so I like to think that I know how to talk about code, even if I can't write code.
Okay.
Does course in university count, or like HTML when you have to fix something in the website?
No, I think HTML doesn't count. Have you ever seen this as a problem in your career?
No, not at all. I think you need to have an understanding of the sort of how code works, and therefore the 2 days of Ella, I used to do a tiny bit of coding as part of an MBA program I took in the Netherlands. But I think it's much more important that you sort of lift yourself up and really understand what it is you're trying to build, and being able to explain and work with the technical people, the engineers, what it is you expect from them, rather than really understanding how to write code.
Okay. So what I think is fascinating, and we have chatted about this before, I mean, if you think about women and men, it's kind of a really old, boring topic, right? But what I found very interesting, and talking to all of you, is that you have actually a great amount of knowledge around teamwork, complementing competences. And maybe Alex, I mean, I've seen you last year running, I guess, a PR campaign of Luluvise on the day of the NOAH conference, and you were like a machine on the phone. And tell me, how do you look at teamwork within your organization?
I mean, teamwork is everything, right? At the end of the day, it's, you have an idea, but it's the team that executes it. I've actually spent, a tremendous amount of time personally on recruiting and, team activities and just how the team operates together, the types of people that we need. It is about 80% of my job. It is critical. When it comes to whether or not I'm an engineer, of course it would be much more helpful, but the type of business that I'm in, it's much more focused on user experience and the product, rather than just pure engineering challenges, which I think today we've got a lot of great technical solutions that allow companies like Luluvise, which are really tech-enabled companies, to operate. So, but yeah, I mean, our team is 18 people. We've got half and half girls, half boys. It was really important for me to keep it that way. And about 9 engineers. So, and yes, they're all men.
We have a funny client, by the way. They're in Spain, and they have one level. They're 80 people, and you get in the elevator. You end up in the middle of the floor. You go to the right side. That's where the sales and market team sits. You go on the left side, where the technical team sits. One side is female, and the other side is male. They're also 50-50, and they only meet in the cafeteria. Ella.
Just to catch you on that point, I think we often cut the gender conversation in terms of the kinds of skill sets that are required and used in a team, right? Everyone knows you need men and women on a team. I think a more interesting way of looking at it might be to say, along a growth story, what skills do you need at one point? And female successes, that might not be as sexy as the single male founder kind of geeking out by himself, but actually it's a very core competency to be able to hold that team together in a difficult growth patch or in a long period of growth, which might be an 18-year or 2-year stint, rather than that glory moment of being the single male founder. And I think women are really good at that long haul process.
I think that's a very interesting point. Marina, you're investing into companies, right?
Yeah.
The way NOAH tries to pick clients or speakers, we never look at the gender question. When you invest, and we heard from Ella, there's this competence of having a team with different views and perspectives. When you invest in Russia, can you give us some experience? I mean, Annelies is a female entrepreneur in Russia running actually a very large business. You're focusing on more the early startups. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
I think the hardest thing today, and it's probably not going to be unique because it's in any startup or in any industry.
So can you speak up a little? The
Sorry?
hardest thing today
The
is?
hardest thing today, and it's actually is probably not unique for Russia, but I think the extreme in which it is in Russia, it is quite unique, is the talent and people. It's absolutely almost impossible today to find an experienced person on the internet because the industry is so young. And I think that the biggest issue today for a lot of VCs in Russia, we have close to 50 of them that just really were formed in less than 1 year, is to find an experienced entrepreneur with a good professional team around him or her. And at least, for us, in Fastlane, the only answer which we could find for that, we started to invest in the long-term, really development of people. So we created in-house academia. So today it only serves our own company. So we really provide a lot of expertise from inside, as well as attracting a lot of experts from outside of the world, because this is the only way. For example, today, I fly very often to Israel because this is the country where you have so many of professional people who understand usability, who understand search engine optimization. These are the words which, less than a year and a half ago, I had people who didn't know what that meant, and they were already an internet company working. So that's, I think, really an everyday challenge, an everyday issue which, we solve today, and I'm sure that's an issue and a problem for a lot of really VCs on the Russian market today.
Yeah, and I think therefore, there's two things I'd like to add to that. One is the market is so tight, so therefore, should we really distinguish between men and women? Secondly, I'm not Russian. I live and work in Russia, and I find, if we want to use the word glass ceiling, although I hate it, Russia is a place where it's wonderful to work as a woman because you feel you don't feel you're a woman, or there's a big difference between women and men. My company is run by myself, and my COO is also a woman, so you can imagine when we recruit men who work for us, we sort of look them in the eye and try to figure out whether they can deal with working for two women. But to be honest, we've got much bigger fish to fry than to think about the difference between women and men. It's much more important that when you recruit, you look for people who add to your skill set, who connect you together, be a strong team, people who understand teamwork, who understand that it's not just about themselves, which is a real challenge when you build up companies like Marina's, where you've got a series of companies who need to grow in their own right, but at the same time, they also need to sometimes work together. So hopefully, I really personally hope that next year you won't have a special panel about women. I think you should just have more women in all the other sessions.
I think that also there's an interesting thing happening. In the Valley, there's a lot of startups that come to me and will ask for help. And I also mentor startups, and a lot of the times, actually 9 times out of 10, those are men that come to me that are engineers that have created incredible technologies, that have venture capitalists running after them. And what they come to and they say, we need someone who is good at business development and is good at understanding how to generate revenue for this company, and also is able to communicate the vision of what we're trying to do, the strategy that we're trying to do. And I think what's interesting as we're starting to see in the trend in venture, and in startups, is revenue is becoming more and more important. We no longer, I think there were a few big IPOs there that has kind of made this a big red flag in everyone's mind. And I think in order to do that, you start looking at the numbers of why women have been able to be successful. I mean, women-led executive boards are generating in Fortune 500 companies, I think it's 35% higher revenues than men. And whether that's just a random statistic or if it actually is true, I don't know. But I can tell you that for me, it's because we are much more risk adverse that we're able to look at the long-term picture, like Ella was saying, but at the same time, build a strategy and a team that are smarter and stronger than us. And in my own recruiting, the way I look at it is that, every person has a unique position in the company. Every person is able to do something better than I could do it myself. And I communicate the overall vision and at the same time understand, in the end, there's a consumer and a transaction.
It's very interesting.
One thing about the engineering school, I lecture in engineering school in university, and one of the things that happen every time that you was talking about code. So I always get into class, and it's an excellence program, meaning like 4 years, they're about to go out of school from university, and it's mostly men. There's usually 1 or 2 women in the class, But I think that in time it gets better and better, and whenever there's a success story, I think we make it even easier for new women to get into this world. And I hope that next time we won't even have to talk about it, just like we
Okay,
said.
well, a lot of lessons learned for me. Well, I guess what you do is not right. I was told more women and do a women's panel. Now I learned, first of all, there's a great energy level. And in fact, I'm told, Marco, you're passé. You're basically stuck in something which is really boring. And in fact, the more and more we talk about it, I guess it has just to do with one simple thing. Teamwork, collaboration, contemplating different skills, and yeah, fighting for the right objective. And I guess there are some obviously very prominent examples like Joanna Shields-Bibo or Nathalie Massé with Net-a-Porter. So we thank you very much for your insights and contribution and coming to NOAH, sometimes from quite far places. Thank you so much.
Thank you.